All right, everybody, pack your bags because we're going for a weekend at Bernie's. Now, this movie from 1989, this is one of my favorite 80s comedies. This is probably one of my favorite comedies. Let me say this. The premise for this movie is one of the greatest premises ever for a film or a story or anything like that. Pretending that someone who just died and keeping them around with you so they appear alive to everybody else is just a brilliant premise, and it's ridiculous, and the writing in this movie just keeps that gag going throughout the entire film. We have Jonathan Silverman in here as Richard. He's great. We have Andrew McCarthy, who I think is the standout of this whole film. He is hilarious in this movie as Larry. His whole character steals the show for me. Terry Kiser as Bernie, and whoever the genius was who decided it was a great idea to put the black sunglasses on dead Bernie should win a goddamn Pulitzer Prize, because what a great decision that is. If anyone hasn't seen Weekend at Bernie's, just go watch it. Like, don't watch the rest of it. We're done. We're not done, but just go see it. But if you haven't seen it, plot synopsis quick. These two friends, Richard and Larry, they are accountants at this company and work for this guy named Bernie Lomax. And they end up discovering an error in some of the accounting, and then Bernie offers them a nice trip to his getaway house on this beautiful beach. I think it's the Hamptons. I'm not sure where they filmed this, but it looks like the Hamptons. To thank them for finding this error, but really he wants to have them killed because he's the one stealing the money from the company. So he wants to have these two killed at his beach house from these mob guys that he knows, and they end up wanting to kill him instead. They do. They get there to have their great weekend at Bernie's house, and he's dead, and they got to make everyone else believe he's alive. The whole dynamic between Larry and Richard, every bit of banter between them, all the dialogue, the arguing, all of that is just comedic gold. The character, Gwen, played by, Catherine Marie Stewart, she's beautiful in this movie. I like the whole dynamic, too, between Richard and her and their little romance. Bernie, I mean, you don't see him much as a character until like 20 minutes in when he's killed. He's just a body after that, but I'm telling you, that dead body has more personality and character traits than you see in a lot of movies nowadays. So Richard and Larry go into Bernie's office to tell him about the financial errors that they found. They end up walking out after Bernie sings their praises and wants to invite them to his place. And then I love when they're walking out, Larry's like, he loves us. The man loves us. And it cuts right to Bernie saying, you gotta kill him, Vito. Great cut gag. Then, what's her name? I can never remember her name. The one who's foot fucking Bernie in the restaurant. As she later fucks his dead corpse. And we'll get into all that because I don't know how that works. But Vito is aware of this whole thing going on between Bernie and his woman, and he says, screw the two nitwits, I want you to take care of Bernie. And the hitman, he's been in a lot of stuff. He's great in this movie, too. What a great performance by that guy. Great scene. When Gwen and Richard takes her back to his parents' house, and they're making out on the couch, and then his father walks in, just in his underwear, and he notices them. He's like, oh, I didn't realize you had company. And he's saying that it's his butler to Gwen. He's like, it's all right, Monroe. Would you just lay out my navy blue suit for the morning? And he's, I'll lay you out. I love the Jamaican music in this movie. I love all the music in this movie. The score is great. They end up getting to the house. They find Bernie. Bernie's dead. Then there's just traveling parties, like all weekend at this beach. Just parties galore. And before they can even do anything and call the cops or anything, the party just wanders into Bernie's place. So they're just pretending that he's alive. They're looking around. Nobody realizes he's dead. And that brings up a point. In today's day and age, how long do you think it would be possible to keep up a ruse like that? To have a dead corpse and make people in a crowd believe he's alive. How long do you think you'd be able to manage that? With today's generation, especially, with the lack of attention span and no observational awareness or anything, I'm sure you could pull this off for a few hours. Much longer than you would think. Then people are interacting with Bernie, the one guy who's trying to like highball, lowball him for something. He just leans on the sofa Bernie's propped on and makes his head go like this, so it looks like he's saying no to his offer. All of that's great stuff. What kind of host invites you to his house for the weekend and dies on you? Richard, why don't we just pretend he didn't die? There are so many great lines and quotable lines in this film. It's unbelievable. I love when Gwen and Richard go for their walk on the beach. They're making out, and then Bernie's wet corpse gets dragged in by the current. The fact that it takes a type of person to do this. I mean, Richard is against all of this. He keeps wanting to call the cops every 10 minutes. So he gets distracted by Gwen being there. Then Larry's just like, yeah, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it later. He's fine, cool, calm, collected with all of this, Larry. And he just sits down next to Bernie and props his dead arm over. It says a lot about Larry's mind. All right, so the woman comes over. The chicka chicka chee la la la. That fucking woman who was footsie fucking him in the restaurant. So she comes over and she waltzes upstairs thinking that he's fucking somebody else. And then she has sex with Bernie's dead corpse. Now, how does this work? I mean, I know rigor mortis is a thing. Now, I'm not a doctor. I've said many times, if you take any medical advice on this channel, you will fucking die. Like, perish immediately. But is there any morticians out there or doctors that could explain if this is possible? Because, I mean, yeah, rigor mortis, things get stiff. But I've seen a lot of autopsy videos and autopsy scenes in movies and stuff. I never remember seeing a dick just poking up from the cloth over them or anything like that. So could somebody, whether you're a doctor, you work in a morgue, you're just a plain fucking weirdo, let me know if that makes any sense or if it's actually doable. I'm asking for a friend. The fact the hitman keeps thinking he's killing Bernie, but he doesn't know he's dead to begin with, so he gets more and more frustrated every time he has to kill him in a different way. Love it. This is probably the best scene in the movie for me, and has my favorite line that I quote all the time with no context to it at all. But when they find the suicide note that Bernie wrote that was supposed to be for the two of them, their two nitwits, and it starts explaining how they were gay lovers and they needed the money so Larry can have a sex change operation. And he starts arguing it as like, I got a reputation to uphold here. And the whole response from Richard is fantastic.
Son of a bitch. I mean, it's not bad enough he's trying to kill me. Now he's turning me into a drag queen. Why couldn't he say you were going to have a sex change operation?
It doesn't matter.
No, it does matter, Richard. It does matter. I have a reputation to protect here.
For Christ's sakes, Larry! No one is going to have a sex change operation.
Oh, yeah.
Words can't describe how hilarious that is to me. Then just so many other great things with Bernie being buried in the sand by the kid, them bringing him on the speedboat, and he falls out and they're dragging him. His body's hitting the things as he goes along. I love near the end when Gwen finally realizes that Bernie's dead. Because Larry just grabs him by the hair, lifts him up and says, "It's just Bernie." And then they finally end up incapacitating the Guido hitman for the last time. He gets arrested, cops come, all is well in Tinseltown. And they put Bernie's body on a stretcher in an ambulance. It goes rolling down the hill, and his body goes catapulting into the sand, and they freak out, and they run away. Weekend at Bernie's, 1989. Such a classic. Such an hysterical film. But alright, guys, wherever you're from, hoping you're having a good morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.